fellow writers, and welcome to the channel. It is June 11th, and so far June has been just a wonderful month. We have been taking off of school, which has just been wonderful, and I've also actually been taking off of official writing, which may sound confusing because I know that the goal was for June to be the month where I started drafting Project Glass. They back up a little bit and kind of explain why I'm taking a break and explain what the new goals for June are, as well as kind of the path that we're going to be going down for, I think, the rest of the year. It's actually very exciting. But before that, really quickly, if you are new to this channel, hello and welcome. I'm Joanna G. Holden, and I am a self-published mommy author of Christian fantasy. My channel revolves around my writing journey, my personal writing process as I'm discovering things, and of course, the writer life and mommy life balance. So if any or all of that sounds good to you, then be sure to click like on this video, comment down below what you are doing in the month of June so we can chat about it. And don't forget to hit the subscribe on the way out and ring that little bell so you never miss a video. Okay, I'm getting really good at that intro. Sometimes it tongue ties me, but we're getting good. Okay. Why am I not writing in the month of June? Let me clarify. I am writing, I'm just not writing officially. I'm not officially working on the projects that I thought I was going to be working on this month. And this is because, if you guys remember, the last video that I made at the end, I shared a revelation that I had, which was really more of like a duh, Joanna kind of moment to myself. I've been toying for a very long time with the idea of writing in mini-series format instead of novel series. The idea of a mini-series is that you write your book, the first book in a series, as 6, 8, 10 episodes. Mine would be novella length that you rapid release over the course of a few weeks. And then at the end, you combine them all into a paperback and you have a season. And that'll be the first season. And then you continue to release the remaining books in your series as each their own season with those episodes therein. And I've loved this idea for a long time. I am an overwriter. We mentioned this many times here. I'm also an overplotter, meaning that my plots tend to get kind of complicated and tend to kind of include lots of elements. And it's really hard for me to narrow things down. And while I certainly don't want to use this as an excuse to just go crazy, I think that it would be nice to have a little more room, word count wise, to be able to explore some things. And I was sitting down in a masterclass, realized, oh, duh, Joanna, this format would be perfect for my fairy tales. They are technically standalone within the series, but they are all happening in the same world with the same magic system in these same couple of kingdoms. And, you know, there's some Easter eggs dropped between, and of course, they are all fairy tales. So I figured this would be amazing, but being a broke author, I could not sign up for the wonderful course that was being offered in the masterclass that gave me that realization immediately. So I am signed up to start working in July, the beginning of July for that. That meant that for the whole month of June and a little bit of May, I really had nothing much that I needed to do deadline-wise. I was no longer pushing to start writing Project Glass, which is the second book in that fairy tale series, because why start writing something that I'm probably going to end up changing the structure of anyways to improve to fit the format a little bit differently. And no point really in rewriting a ton of Swan Song, which is the first book that I've been working on, since clearly I'm going to be changing it anyways. So I gave myself that break. And I knew that as soon as I told my brain, oh, you don't have to write this month, my brain was going to want to do nothing but. And that has been true. I have been having crazy amounts of ideas for Swan Song, Project Glass, the other fairy tales in that series, my high fantasy series, which is like a back burner project. And then I had another idea that is kind of a culmination of more percolating over the years, ideas that I've had, and the bringing back of a project that I had pretty much set aside for good for a long time. And that is Super Secret Project. You may not remember Super Secret Project. I talked about it a lot in 2019. That's when I was writing it with my co-author, who was and is one of my best writing friends. But it wasn't working for us to co-write the book together at that time. And since then, with life being crazy and us both having different projects we're working on, it continues to not be the best idea for us to try and write this book together. So we had agreed, I believe it was last summer, we agreed to just split our work, you know, each of us pull out characters, world building, and plot that belonged to us, that we'd contributed, and just take the best ideas that we had made and feel free to use them in our own stories, which worked perfectly because the way that we had written it was almost two different worlds, two different sets of characters, two different plot lines that were kind of being woven together toward a more or less unified end. But it was very definitely like separated stories. So it was actually very easy to like unwind the ending and like separate stuff. But I hadn't had the opportunity to really sit down and decide what I wanted to do with this material because I just hadn't had the time. I've been working on all the other things. I have also, for a very long time, been wanting to have some kind of a gap book or gap series that could ease my transition from young adult fiction, young adult fantasy, particularly young adult fairy tales, which are very light on the magic, more historical kind of feeling in some ways, and very romance focused. And then ease into the adult high fantasy, sprawling epic saga with giant cast, huge world, multiple magic systems, multiple points of view, you know, the whole 9 yards. Because that kind of a series is a big commitment as a reader. And I've been reading more this month because I've had the opportunity to, and I've gotten back into Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time series, which I'm loving so much. I'm on the second book. I finally was able to get back into it this month, and I've been loving it, but just thinking, oh my gosh, there's like 12 more books after this, or is it 12 or 11 or 10, something like that. There's a lot more books after this, realizing the commitment to make it all the way to the end of some of these massive fantasy sagas. And for many of us, like that's the dream to be able to read. We love the chunky, thick books, and we love the fact that it takes us forever to read it. But to go from writing shorter, more fairy tale-y young adult novels, no less wonderful and serious, but just a different feel, to go to that, I just felt like kind of a big leap. And if I've learned anything, had anything drilled into my skull more from all the research I've been doing on self-publishing, it's to stay as consistent as you can with the content that you're releasing. If you write fantasy, don't also try writing historical fiction. If you write historical fiction, don't also try writing science fiction, at least until you've developed enough of a readership that you can decide, do I want to bring them with me to this other genre or this other target audience or what? Or potentially use a pen name. And I am not using a pen name. I have enough trouble trying to keep up with just my name and my own books and my own social media. So I feel like Super Secret Project, or Project Ether, I think I was calling it for a while, would actually be the ideal transition book. And it would be a book that I could write as a standalone novel, which again, self-publishing drilled into your head. You gotta write series because that's what sells. I get it. But if I wrote this as a standalone, I would also be giving myself a chance to practice plotting and world building and characterization of such epic proportions in one little self-contained book instead of starting that journey with this massive sprawling series. I believe I've mentioned this many times, but my greatest weakness in writing is plotting. The what comes next, the what happens next, and the making sense of things moving forward. That's why I don't pants, is because if I sit down and just start writing what I think would be cool to happen, even if I know what's coming, I'm still likely to just ramble, to just talk, to have conversations and world building exposition and narrative. My characters, my world building, and my narrative are actually quite strong. It's the darn plotting, it's the what comes next, it's the getting people to turn the page to figure out what happens next. And with the fairy tales, I'm kind of getting that. Obviously, I'm having to make up my own, my own world. I'm having to, develop backstories for characters. I'm having to figure out how plotting would work within each confined fairy tale. But these fairy tales, I am trying to stay as true to the original content as possible. I am more or less making expanded versions of the fairy tales themselves. I'm simply naming characters and tying together all those loose threads and making sense of the wonky magic and gently removing a couple of, problematic things from each fairy tale that don't really work very well with a 21st century audience. I'm looking at this. It already has a backbone. It already has a foundation. It already has the basic plot beats. All I'm doing is putting flesh on everything. It's such a gross, weird metaphor. I'm sorry. I don't like it very much, but I'm using it. With Super Secret Project or Project Ether, I would have the chance to experiment with having to plot my own story from start to finish, zero help in the middle. And I think that would be wonderful. And again, I would love to practice that on something small and self-contained, even if it ended up being a 120,000 word book. it would still be significantly smaller than this massive series that I have in my head for this high fantasy series, Project Coastlander. So I have decided that I am going to just plan that out in my head, that I am going to anticipate writing the fairy tales as this series of mini-series, I guess, these seasons with these episodes, and plan on finishing that up, and then pull this out. This wonderful notebook. I got so much nostalgia. I pulled this out at lunchtime and I started flipping through the material, and like the waves of nostalgia. If any of you are sentimental writers, you know what I'm talking about. But look at all this. Something that kind of clenched it for me is I already have a world created for this. Right here. I have pretty much all the world building. I have maps, I have names, I have 6 different fantasy species already figured out. I have magic systems already in place. I already have characters. I have a whole list of characters. I really would not need to do more than like fill in a couple of extras and side characters. That's really all I would have to do. And I already have the elements of a plot that I wrote. So I'm not going to show you the front because that would reveal the original title of this book, and I might still be able to use it. We each came up with a title. It was going to be a duology, and I'm going to see which one ends up being the one that I get to keep. But this is it. We wrote out, I think it was like about 120,000-ish, I think, words combined between our 2 sets of words, but I've already written a ton of it. I had my half figured out. It's already in place, and it would not take much for me to just continue working on the part of the story, the novel that we wrote, that was mine. So all of that to say, I have a project to work on in June and some of July. I know that I'm not supposed to be writing, but obviously I knew that I wasn't going to take myself too seriously on that. What does that look like for the rest of the year, though? If I'm working on this, what is that? What does that do with all of the fairy tales and with Project Coastlander and with all of the different things? Absolutely nothing. This changes nothing. I am very well aware of the fact that this project would take me, I think I had decided 5 to 6 years to get out into the world if it came out immediately following the fairy tales. And that is if the fairy tales, I'm able to release 1 season a year. So if I was able to do that, it's going to be 5 to 6 years before I could really focus on launching this story. So it really changes nothing. And I'm kind of excited about that. I'm kind of excited to have a project that has 0 pressure right now. Not that there's like a ton of pressure for the fairy tales, but I want them to be out in the world. And they are very close, at least the first one, very close to being ready to be out in the world. So I feel more of a readiness to be done with them. And this wonderful story, I would be just beginning on. I would be just stepping into, and as opposed to Project Coastlander, which again is a huge, massive, sprawling epic of a series that just touching my toes into is still going to be years of hard work to release into the world and to be writing and all the things. This is small and simple and fun, and it's just 1 novel, 1 time, you know, and maybe eventually, like if I had a huge readership and they really, really loved it and I found myself full of ideas, maybe I do a sequel someday, or maybe I do like a series spin-off of this novel or something. I don't know. But for right now, it's just fun, which is why it's not really work, which is why it was perfect for vacation. So I'm going to just do that. I'm going to sit down a little bit whenever I get a chance. Look through the notebooks, read through some of the material because I just love it so much. Get on my computer, maybe make some aesthetics, jot down some notes in my writing journal on where I think that this could go, what I think the plot could eventually look like. And I think overall, just have a fun time this month, just playing with the brainstorming and the fun part of writing, which to me is the idea phase. The best part is when the book is done and it's published and it's printed and I have a copy in my hands, or I can put the copies up here on my shelf and I can be done and I can go back and I can read it. But the idea phase is like the second best phase. As for the rest of the year, I know that I had said in the beginning of the year goals video that I really wanted to focus on just writing 1 new book this year, and that was going to be Project Glass. That obviously has now gone out the window because the rest of the year is going to be pretty much focused solely on restructuring and rewriting and finishing up Swan Song so that I can release it into the world, hopefully, fingers crossed, maybe next year. I hope that you enjoyed this video because that is all that I have is a very rambly update. I hope that it was interesting and maybe inspired you if you are also struggling with managing multiple projects and choosing which one you need to work on and you just decide to do something fun for the summer. This is your permission that if you need to do that, it's okay. Go ahead and do that. Do that, it would be fun. But if you like this video, again, be sure to click the like button and comment down below what you're working on for the month of June. I love you all very much. I hope you have an amazing rest of the week writing, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!